All right, this is the Big Douglas Show. It is a Super Monday. We are back. Do a little bit of programming notes, catch everybody up. We've been away for a little bit. Big Pooh today drops the album To Dream in Color, so please go check that out. He is touring in Europe, so he won't be on the show today, but we hope to have him back in a couple of weeks. Paul from the 50 Gut Blog is here. Paul, thanks for hopping on with us today.
Doug, man, thanks for having me on, bro.
No doubt. It feels like a couple of years of juggling schedules. I don't know how we haven't had you on before, but excited to get you on today.
Yes, sir.
And Chris Baker is back from a African tour. Chris, I was worried about you. You had lost your phone. Nobody could get a hold of you, but you're back. And you got to tell me, I mean, you were the last 2 months in Africa, yes?
Yeah.
And which countries?
I went all around. I visited Ghana for a couple of weeks and then spent most of my time in Tanzania. So it was definitely a great experience to go home to the motherland.
Go home to the motherland. You did a little gold looking around over there. The world's greatest gold is there. Is that right?
Yeah, they have a lot of gold mines there in Tanzania. Places right outside of Tanzania. So I just went there to explore and see what kind of investments I could make or try and make. But it was a really good educational time there. I was able to learn a lot about the gold business and, you know, how they extract the gold, where they get the gold from, how they use certain chemicals to get it from the dirt. And they process that and then turn it into bullion. And, you know, it was a very nice experience to really understand, you know, how the gold market and the gold world works.
Now, you were telling me last time we talked that you were surprised. You stick out a bit. Not a bunch of dudes with long hair over there, and fairly small, right? Like I think I was surprised to hear that you. I mean, I know you are a large man, but you said you stood out a bit.
Right, you would think being African American, you go to Africa, like you'll just blend in, but it's like it was almost like I was like a lion walking through the zoo, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, who's this American guy?" Like I look like an American, so everywhere I went, you know, being that I was so big and the fact that I had dreads, it was like, "Oh my God, who's this American guy? He's not from here." But it was pretty cool, though. It was pretty cool.
Paul, first time on the show, so we like to get to know everybody that comes on. 50 Gut Blog, how long you been doing it? How long to get started? What do you like about it? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you got going on.
Sure. I've been doing this. What we've been doing is me and my co-host Corey and Cliff. Shout out to y'all. Doing it for about 5-6 seasons now. We've been doing it weekly. Take a couple breaks. You know, a couple of us had kids, so you know how that goes when you yell youngins running around. You can't have toddlers in the back screaming. But we've been doing it solid for like 5-6 years. We've been lifelong Redskins fans, lifelong friends, and we always talked about it back in the day. Like we screaming in debates and screaming at the TV, like we should really get this on wax and tell people how we feel about this team. And we decided to do it. And it kind of was a success, so we kept it up. And really excited about the new phase of this team and talking about hopefully good times to come.
I like to think that we do have good times coming. I'll say this, though. Swag, I don't know if you caught it or not, but Brian Mitchell, after the telecast with Santana Moss, Santana goes, what I can't figure out is ever since I've been here, speaking of Santana Moss, it's the same problems. It's that you can move defensive coordinators out, you can switch out head coaches, you can change up offensive philosophy, but it feels like the same problems we've had for the last 8, 9, 10 years, we still have right now. And I don't get it. It's easy to blame the owner, right? Like the owner is the one constant, but the owner ain't coaching him up, and he's damn sure not playing football. So at some point, you know, it feels lazy to blame it all on the owner. What are your thoughts here on this?
Well, one, you know, I just feel like I always say it's hard to recruit top tier talent with all the stuff that we have going on in the front office. You know, our team is still very young, so you're going to have to go through growing pains and learning how to play, learning how to communicate. learning how to be responsible and being in the right place at the right time. But a lot of that could be we don't have those premier free agents that we could bring in that kind of you could just plug in and play. We have guys that have to learn how to play, essentially. These guys have to get better with experience, and it's kind of hard to go out and go get, like a what's the kid from Kansas City that went to New Orleans? Tyrann Mathieu. It's kind of hard to recruit a guy like that who could come in and play safety and be, immediate impact player. And we have to rely on others to, get good experience and then play well, and hopefully they do play well. But with all the things that we have going on with the team and the front office, it's kind of hard to recruit top tier guys who could come in and really make a difference. And I think that has a lot to do with it.
Paul, Rivera said he kind of took the job based off of the defensive line and the amount of talent there. And I totally get that, and I appreciate it. But has football changed to the point where that was like it sounded good, but that's not how we're doing it anymore? I mean, the back end, if the pass rush can't get to 5 or 6 seconds, and we saw this the other day, then it totally crushes the back end. I know it's kind of the chicken and the egg type thing, but is the defense built the wrong way?
Yes and no. I say that, and that's kind of cop out. No, because football is football, and it's a physical game, and if you're physical at the point of attack, you have a chance to be successful if you can rush the passer, disrupt his rhythm with his receivers. You can win football games like that. Yes, because obviously, like you said, this is not 1985 anymore. It's a new game. It's a passing league, and you need to really dedicate assets to your back seven, your linebackers, your coverage guys, cornerback, safeties, and while drafting a first-round pick, defensive lineman 4 years in a row is sexy and exciting, and you can sell a good pass rush. It's not really the prudent way to build a defense these days. So it's hard to say. It really is hard to say, in my opinion.
Swaggy, I brought this one up on the screen for you because one, he asked it to you, but two, I know you have talked about this before. You don't like putting it on the coach for the most part. You believe that's the player's got to get it done. We continue hearing more and more about gap discipline and staying in rushing lanes. Again, that's a 2-year problem now. I know they fired the defensive line coach, but really, I mean, what are we looking at? Scheme or players just aren't doing it right? And if they're not doing it right, whose fault is that?
It could be a little bit of both. It could be a little bit of both. Sometimes you have high-paying players who are going to go out and get theirs. They don't really care what the hell the scheme is. As long as they get their numbers, then they're okay. But I think we have enough guys we have a good blend of guys who have money and guys who still want to get paid. So it's to really get the guys to really buy in to what exactly we need as a defense. If we need a guy to push the pocket and not worry about sacks, we need a guy to really get around that edge and take chances and make sacks. But you have to have a good blend of both. And that's what really makes a good defensive line. And then with the secondary, just huge times they're still blown coverages over and over. We keep giving up, 3rd and 10s. It's like, what the hell? We're supposed to get off the field right now. We got to, just cover the person we're supposed to cover. But at the same time, the defensive line helps the back end. If you look at guys who have a lot of success in the back end on play, that quarterback has gotten off the spot. There's a defensive lineman that has rushed his timing on his pass, or they got the quarterback flustered. And if that quarterback is able to sit in the pocket and go through his reads and get outside of the pocket and break it, and then do a scramble drill, that always hurts the defense. So if we want a good secondary, we have to have a good defensive line. The defensive line helps that secondary become good. Because if you get that quarterback to rush his throws and make errant throws, that's how we get picks, and that's how we get tip balls and interception. But one side has to help the other. The defensive line can't rush great, and then guys are running wide open, because no matter how good your rush is, if someone's wide open, NFL quarterbacks will find that open guy. So it's just a mixture of both, and everyone has to get on the same page. And the old saying is, you're either coaching it or you're allowing it. So one way we'll figure out what's going on once we get everyone back in the lineup, and we'll figure out if the coach is allowing it or if these guys are just going out there just winging it and just playing football.
Now, maybe it's part of the scheme. I'm sure that it is, but I can't be the only one frustrated or disappointed every time I see William Jackson lined up 9 yards off the line of scrimmage on third down. I don't understand the point, Paul, because to me, it was free money for the Chiefs. Right?
Right?
Go ahead.
Wasn't he a press corner in Cincinnati?
Yeah.
It was a press man corner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, why do you pay that much money for a press corner and they come here and ask them to play off?
And even if he's not, Chris, the fact of the matter is on 3rd and 7, they had him lined up 8 yards off the line of scrimmage at least twice. And it was free pickings. Paul, frustrating?
Right.
Yeah, it's quite frustrating. Going back to what Chris said, he was a press man corner in Cincinnati. You brought him here and you had him doing something that he totally wasn't familiar with, which is frustrating in itself. But on a 3rd and 3, you have him 8 yards off. That's just not knowing your talent. That's not knowing what you bring guys in to do. His best attribute in Cincinnati was pressing up on a receiver and not letting me off the line. And those 3rd and 3s, that's where he makes his money. To have him 8 yards off the ball, 9 yards off the ball, that's just not understanding what he's best at. It's strategy that's destined to fail from the start, in my opinion. It doesn't work out.
Paul, the coaching staff has told everybody that'll listen that they're not concerned about the linebacker position. They must not be, because they haven't done anything to address it. They're not concerned. Are you concerned?
I am really concerned, and I don't want to talk shade on anybody on this podcast because they're all good football players in their own way. But you are one injury away from having David Mayo being a full-time starter on your team, and he can do some good things. There's some things he also can't do so great. And I know that linebackers are a diminished position in the NFL, but I believe in layering your team with talent. You have depth. You have one guy ready to go when somebody steps off the field, and it's just so thin there that your starters are already questionable as is. If there's an injury, which is bound to happen, you're putting yourself in a bad spot.
Chris, they built this team to play good defense and run the ball. Now, I'll suggest that that's not really the way football is played anymore, but you can win football games that way. I guess, you think the defense will be back to what it was 2 years ago when they were able to win football games because of the defense, or no?
I think so, but I like our success on defense is going to be predicated on how well our defensive line plays. If those guys are on the same page and they're playing dominant football, it helps everyone else behind you. If our D-line is playing well against the run, then that means our linebackers will probably be able to run across the field free and make tackles. If they're playing well against the pass and they're getting sacks and disrupting the quarterback and getting him off the spot, then hopefully that quarterback will make the wrong throw and throw us the ball and create some interceptions. But if our defensive line is not on the same page and really causing havoc all game, it could be a long day and a long year for our defense. But, we have a top-rated defensive line, and we have high expectations for those guys, so they have to go out and play to the level of expectation that everyone believes that they can play in. When you spend a first-round draft pick on defensive linemen for 3-4 years in a row, you expect them to be able to, like everyone across the line, to have at least 10-plus sacks.
Yeah, it's a huge year for Chase Young in year 3 coming off the injury. Yeah, and essentially
right. It'd be huge.
Probably is the last year that the 4 of them will play together. I mean, I just cannot find a way.
No doubt about it.
Where they can pay Payne the kind of money he's going to want. Because why wouldn't he want John Allen money? He should, and he probably somebody will give him close. I would imagine, particularly if he has a good year. And Sweat, Sweat is every bit the freak that Chase Young is. But again, we haven't really seen the productivity. Paul, if the Bears do have Roquan Smith on the trade block, would you send a draft pick and Daron Payne and then make Roquan Smith the highest paid linebacker in the league?
That's a good one. Yes, I would personally. If you are hanging your hat on your defense and there's one glaring hole that's stopping the defense from being what it could be, what it should be, and Daron Payne is, got one foot out the door anyway, I mean, why not? I mean, Roquan Smith is the all-pro linebacker. I mean, he's clearly unhappy with the situation in Chicago. I'm not a fan of paying a linebacker $10 to $12 million a year or whatever he's going to demand. But if he's the missing link and you're
closer to 20,
confident, right?
Closer to 20.
Right, exactly. I mean, listen, I would do it, man. If you could just drop him in the middle of defense and then you can get it popping with him and the other 10 guys around him, and that's like the guy that gets it going, then why not? I would do it.
Chris, do we overappreciate guys like Cam Curl? We love him on the team. I mean, is that because he's on our team, or does he just not get enough respect around the league yet?
I think he's a good player, but you know, the more games you win, the more time he spends on national TV, the more people will respect him. You know, you really don't get a feel for how good guys are unless you see them on national televised. Commanders, you're going to pitch into him, but if you're not a Commanders fan and we're not playing on prime time, who's really watching him? You know, I think he's a really good talent, but the more he goes out there and he plays well on a big stage, everyone's going to be like, oh, who is this guy? You know, but we just have to win the games. The more you win, the better off people know who you are. If you're losing, no one cares who you are. But if you're winning, guys will pay attention to who you are.
Facts. Big facts.
Tight end, Logan Thomas came back today. Huge development. Paul, is that the best group on the field for the Commanders at this point when healthy?
No, I mean, a close second or a close third, I'd say. I mean, I would still give the edge to wide receivers. I'm a big fan of Dotson and Terry and Curtis, and I'm even a big fan of guys like Cam Sims and even a guy like Dax Milne has come on in the past. But I do like the tight end room, and they've rebuilt that room very quickly. I mean, a couple of years ago, we had really nobody in that room, and you get Logan Thomas here on the flyer. He ends up really turning the corner, becoming the tight end that he always thought he could be. You draft a John Bates, you bring in Cole Turner, and you have a few undrafted guys who have a lot of talent. And now it went from a room that was completely barren 2-3 years ago to somebody that has, veteran leadership with a Logan Thomas and a lot of young guys that can do a lot of different things. So the best right now, no, but up and coming and really enticing, yes, for sure.
Where do you rank Wentz as far as quarterbacks go in the division?
Right now, I would say second still with Jalen Hurts right on his heels. I think another productive season from Hurts, and he might flip-flop with Wentz, clearly ahead of Daniel Jones, not, on Dak's level clearly, but like 2-3, like 2A, 2B, somewhere in that range.
Swaggy, same question to you.
I would say the same. Jalen Hurts is definitely on the cusp of becoming a really good player. He just has to put it together for a complete season. Obviously he's a great run threat, but you want to be able to see him make those tough throws that a quarterback has to make when he has to make them. But Carson Wentz is a proven quarterback, and he's not as bad as people really try to make him seem. He just hasn't been able to get over that hump as, a premier quarterback and win the big games that you need to win. I mean, his first couple years in the league, he was talked about in the same sentence as Tom Brady, and like, oh, this guy's going to be the next greatest thing, and he can move. He could get outside the pocket. But for one reason or another, obviously with the injuries, things just haven't worked out his way, but he still has the arm talent. You can't really judge a lot off of what he's shown in the preseason because obviously he hasn't had his whole starting offensive line out there, and obviously the offensive coordinator is not going to show everything that we're going to use during the season, during the preseason games. But I really think he has a lot of weapons. I think this is probably his best receiving core, tight end core, like a total unit with running backs, tight ends, and receivers he's had in his whole career. So hopefully he's able to make those guys better and vice versa. Those guys are able to make those tough catches and make those spectacular catches to really make the quarterback look like, oh, my God, this guy is great. But, one side has to help the other. The receivers have to help the quarterback, and the quarterback has to help the receivers. And when you're in trouble, you have to go to your safety net and check it down on your running backs. When you have good running backs who can catch out of the backfield. So, you look at guys like Drew Brees, you look at his stat line, he'll be 45 for 56, and people don't realize that probably 12 of those completions went to checkdowns. It went down to the tight end or to the running back. You know what I mean? But those are the type of throws that you make, and no one really understands that if you make a 2-3 yard pass and that guy goes for 30 yards, it goes down to 30-yard completion. So if we could get that going, that'd help him out a lot.
Segue from what Swaggy was talking there, Paul. I personally am a fan of Turner. The fan base, I think, is split maybe closer to 50-50. I've always thought that there just hadn't been much to work with for Turner. If quarterback's the most important position on the field and he's been through, 9 of them, none of them really being what I would call premier quarterbacks either. Mm-hmm. Where do you sit on Scott Turner and the offense?
Just based on seeing his plays and the way he puts together an offense, puts together a game plan, I am a fan of his. You can see little shades of Norv in his game, and we all are big Norv fans around here, or at least I was. To what you said, he hasn't had a quarterback. Even going back to his days in Carolina, towards the end of his tenure there, he didn't really have a Cam Newton at the peak of his powers to work with. He didn't have even a Carson Wentz level quarterback. Now you actually have a guy who, no matter what you think about Carson Wentz, he has the tools to do whatever you want. Can you mold him into the guy that you need him to be to make the offense run? That remains to be seen. But it's undeniable that the tools that he has here now can really make him stand out and show that he is a quality up and coming offensive coordinator.
The fan base is going crazy because Brian Robinson started the last game as RB1. I've said this for a couple of weeks now. Last year, Patterson got 70 carries, I believe, right around 70. And Antonio Gibson got close to 220, 230 carries. There is a way that Gibson and Robinson switch positions just as far as they have been trying to use Gibson as a between the tackle, beat him down running back with McKissick as the juxtaposition there. I would suggest now we can still see 220 touches for Gibson, while maybe it's more like, 50 of them receptions. And Brian Robinson really takes on the between the tackle load. To me, that ought to make things better for Gibson. Paul, I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Man, I've been screaming for 2 years now that he needs to be more of a weapon, right? Like we did at Memphis. He was a jack of all trades. He was a running back, wide receiver, slot guy. Like he could really do it all. And you've really seen the past couple of years him be like a workhorse back. Like he was 4th in the league in carries last year, or 4th or 6th. Either way, like they tried to really make him a between the tackles running back. And I think that's a disservice to what he can do best. One, because of the fumbles. 2, the inefficiency. We've all heard that he's one of the least efficient running backs in the league when it comes to a yards per play aspect. But I do think that in space, if you give him a one-on-one matchup with somebody, let him do what he's best at, he can be more efficient for you as a player overall. I think like stock down on Antonio Gibson as a running back, stock up as a weapon, as a punt returner, kick returner, as a move him around guy. So, it is a shame that he's losing his starting job, possibly. But I do think 220 carries or 220 touches for Gibson, you could get a lot of good work out of him.
It was fantastic to see them throw him, whatever you want to call it, the Texas route, the angle route, whatever it was. They ran 2 of those together on the play. Somebody's going to always be open there. And why they're not using them. And it was odd, right? Because the fan base wanted that. The fan base wanted lots of movement from the backfield, getting them both out. And I hope that the addition of Brian Robinson will allow them to do that. Maybe play some 13 personnel. That'd be nice. They've been talking about it forever. Haven't really done it. Swaggy, the modern NFL is built to be a race to 40. That's the way I see the game now. Are we built that way?
I don't think so. I think we may be a race to 25, 28. But as long as you have a good defense, it really doesn't matter. If our defense is holding teams to under 20, then we'll be okay if we're getting 25, 28. But I don't see us being a 40-point a game offense. But back to the running backs, Gibson is definitely a weapon that we have to take advantage of because not too many linebackers and or safeties could check that man in open field, but we have to put him in position to be a wide receiver. You know, we have to be able to line them up at running back, motion them out, and create different mismatches where people really can't guard them and put them on a one-on-one on an island. Get them some bubble screens, get them some actual screens, get them in space. You know, obviously he has a fumbling problem as we've seen in the preseason when he's running that ball in between the tackles. You know, it was a simple tackle and he fumbled the ball. It was like, Jesus, man, like already. But you know, if we get him the ball in space and put him against DBs and a few linebackers, I think he'll have a lot more success. Brian Robinson played well. You know, I like how he's played in the preseason. He's had some explosive runs. He could be really the bell cow where we could use him in between the tackles. But when you talk about going on the perimeter and third and long situations, you know, we got to use Gibson. You know, we should use him more like the St. Shoes Kamara. You know, it's a bunch of screen plays, a bunch of perimeter runs. They're motioning him out to play receiver and really and putting that linebacker on the island or even putting that safety on the island. I think that's where he works best. And then obviously if he could play special teams, you know, put him on special teams. That's the most space on the field. When you can line up on punt return or kickoff return, put him in space, let him do what he does best.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Gibson, and I continue to say, I think they pounded the rock with him because they didn't have anybody else. The other problem with Gibson is everything we want him to do, we already have somebody that maybe does it better. I mean, maybe McKissick is the best receiving back, at least the top 5. So that's why I hope this year more than anything, they'll use these guys together. I mean, I would love to see all 3 of them out there on the field together, particularly if that's the way they want to win football games. Again, I'm not necessarily sure I agree with that, but that's what they're telling you is that they want to do.
Hey, if you can run the ball and play good defense, you'll be okay. As long as you can run that ball, especially in the fourth quarter, if you could play with the lead and be able to run that 4-minute, 6-minute offense, you know, that's the key to success. I mean, I know it's not pretty and it's not the Patrick Mahomes and you're scoring 40, 50 points a game, but a win is a win, whether you win scoring 30 points, 40 points, or if you win 12-9, you know, a win is a win. So if we could run that ball and play.
Let me ask you this, Chris.
We'll be all right.
I was getting ready to go somewhere else, but you brought it up. When you play a guy like Mahomes, like they were close a bunch, you know, and then Mahomes rolls out and whips it sidearm between 2 people for 30 yards. I mean, when you're on the defensive line chasing a guy like that, you just chalk it up to, you know, good on him? Or like, how does it feel to play a guy like that feels like a magician to put down on the ground? Because they were close.
I feel like you put a good emphasis on practice on keeping guys like that in the pocket, or maybe they have some type of study where it shows, well, if we get him rolling out to the left, he's not as good as he is rolling out to the right. So you may structure some defensive line rushers to roll him out to the side where he throws the ball the weakest. But a guy like him, you know, he can make all the throws on either side of the field. So you try and corral him, keep him in the pocket, get him off the spot, but always keep him in the pocket, because when he's outside of that pocket, he can extend plays. You know, he's one of the best in the league that can do it. And it's not as if he stays in the pocket, he's any worse of a quarterback, but you'll have a better chance if you can keep him in that pocket, push that middle and collapse the edge of him trying to throw the ball with the center right in his face where he's almost hitting the center's helmet every time he throws the ball. That's going to frustrate that quarterback when he has offensive linemen on his feet, when he can't step up and make the passes that he wants to step up. He'll get really frustrated. But sometimes you just have to tip your hat off to a guy who could just make those spectacular plays that no matter what defensive call, you know, he just made a better play. Sometimes you just have to tip your hat off to that kind of guy. But you know, going into that week, what the game plan is to help that guy become a less efficient quarterback. And, you know, a lot of times when we play scrambling quarterbacks, we knew, hey, rush lanes are going to be very important this week. We know going into the games that this is not the game for our defensive tackles to try and do their fancy pass rush move. This is a game where you're going to have to do a lot of bull rushing and pushing the pocket and making sure this guy can't step up, and then you let your defensive ends, you know, do what they have to do to get around the edge and get to the quarterback. And it may be your job to cover that defensive end. But if he takes that inside pass rush, and that defensive tackle needs to be out for contain if he gets beat across the tackle's face. So you put that kind of stuff into the defensive game plan, and you rep it out during practice each and every week, and it's just up to you to go out there and execute it. And then, like I said, sometimes you just have to tip your hat off to a guy who just beats you on that play.
He beats a lot of people on a lot of plays. Paul, as we wrap up today's show, as we wrap up today, I ask everybody that visits with us, what to you will make for a good season this year?
A good season to me, I always say that a good season is taking that step forward. And I guess coming off the heels of a 7-10 season with a backup quarterback for 16 and a half games, now you have an improved roster. I think everybody would agree that the roster is better. You have an actual quarterback here that you think you have to do some things with. Yeah, you have a few guys coming off injury, but I would like to see them push for, if not the division, a wild card spot. If you go 10-7 and you miss out, I have no problem with it. At least you're improving as a team. And I just want to see, it's year 3. Ron has acknowledged it's a big year for him and his staff and for the organization. First year as Commanders, as a whole new rebrand. I would like to see them start this year with a positive playoff push, if not a playoff berth.
10 wins is what you've got for them as we stand today?
Yeah, go ahead. Give them 10 wins.
You sound real confident in that.
I mean, listen, they didn't look great on Saturday, but I'm going to give them 10 wins anyway.
Paul, tell the folks, and I'll share a link to where you guys are at, but tell the folks where and when they can find your work.
Definitely. 50 Gut Podcast. We drop every Monday, always entertaining, always spicy. Definitely check us out on every podcast platform you can think of, Apple Music, Spotify, what have you. Also check us out on Instagram, Twitter, obviously, and on TikTok at 50 Gut Blog.
Swaggy, glad to have you back. We'll see you next Monday. And everybody make sure to go get Big Creep's album to Dream in Color, anywhere you buy your albums at. So. And we will check all of you out again Wednesday and then Friday. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and thank you guys for joining me today.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.